Welcome to TSFS. Welcome back, Frasiacs. Brand new episode of the Sarah Fraser Show. I got a question for you. If you go to a restaurant and you see a rat, do you ever go back to that restaurant? Or is it off your list? You know, if you see a little red tattooey hanging out on the deck and you ordering yourself a giant pretzel and the sliders, are you eating? Are you going? Or are you coming back? Okay. I'll tell you, there is never a dull moment in the Fraben household. You know, my last name is Fraser, but when it comes to Schman, we just we blend the last name. So we get the Frabens, okay? We always say that's what our reality show would be called. We go out to eat on Friday night here in the lovely city of Los Angeles, and we're sitting at this restaurant with my brother-in-law, and my brother-in-law goes, "Oh my God, there's a rat." And it was like on the stoop. It was like on the step of this, like deck, like because it was a dining deck, very nice restaurant. And by the way, rated A. Like, you know how restaurants in cities, I think this is in Washington, D.C. I know it's in New York City. It's here in Los Angeles. They get a rating, A, B, C, D. And of course, they're only putting out like an A rating. And actually, I don't even know, I ought to look like how that really works because they're only going to advertise an A rating. And maybe that's why you only see A ratings in windows and restaurant windows. So this place had an A rating. So we're thinking fantastic. Well, Ratatouille was looking dopey eyed. Ratatouille looked like it had hit the Xanax. I mean, it probably had been poisoned, honestly. And it was hanging out on the stair for a good 10 minutes. People were walking in and out by this rat. I mean, it was a full rat in the restaurant. And then finally, so we're just sitting there like, we get our pretzel, we get our tater tots, we're eating them. I'm like, oh God, like I gotta just I'm starving at this point. It's the end of the day. Like KJ has started to hit us. So that's like a whole nother conversation I'm going to talk about today that I need your help with. And I'm like, oh shit, I just want to eat the pretzel. So I start eating the pretzel. A guy comes in, notices the rat on the stoop. The dopey-eyed rat gets down on the ground, y'all, like to make eye contact with it. Looks at the rat. And then, of course, the waiter's like, oh, my God, goes and gets the maitre d'. The maitre d' is like, they're all like beginning to circle, right? So a woman comes out from the back with a broom and dustpan. Gets the rat into the dustpan and walks it down the street like to the competitor and drops it off at the competitor's restaurant. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. It was like, I don't know. I mean, it's been a real hot second since I've worked in the restaurant industry. I worked at my stepfather's bowling center for a couple of years in Maine. And I don't recall seeing any rats, but it's freezing in Maine. So I'm sure they probably can't even live, to be honest. But I'm like, we're not coming back here, guys. And my husband and my brother-in-law were like, oh, yeah, we are. Yeah, it's just par for the course. It's just life in the city. I'm like, no, I don't care. I'm sure they exist. Over the years when I lived in D.C., does everybody remember Johnny Rockets in DuPont Circle? And a guy famously rolled up there at 2 a.m. and there were all these rats in the main window. They'd gotten a nosh from the back and they were all in the front window. And the guy was filming them running all over the restaurant. Then it closed after that. Thank God. I'm like, I'm not coming back. I don't care if it has an A+ rating. But they were like, oh, this is like nothing. And, if it's been inspected and it got an A+ rating, I'm like, they could have paid somebody off. What are you guys talking about? Fucking Ratatouille was here for 10 minutes, making himself at home and definitely looked like the dude was on MDMA. Like, no. Anyway, do you go back? Like, hit me up on my TikTok. I'm going to talk about this on my TikTok and on my IG at the Sarah Fraser Show, everywhere you can find it. I hope you had an amazing week. Things are turning around here at the Fraben Fraser household. So it was a good week here. I say that, all is good. And, I'm getting ready to do Deborah Silverman's level 1 astrology course. Am I nuts? I loved our conversation. If you're like, who the fuck, what are you talking about? So 2 weeks ago on the show, 2 Mondays ago, I had Deborah Silverman on, astrologer to the stars. How did I find out about her? My friend Lauren LaGrasso, who has if you want a fantastic informational, motivational, positive person. Lauren LaGrasso is it. And she does a show called Unleash Your Inner Creative. And it's truly a journey of Lauren finding her true creative, like what she wants to do and how do you do it, especially how do you do it, if you're working another job. So she has all kinds of like interesting, motivated people on her show. And I saw an IG clip and it was of this woman, Deborah Silverman, this astrologer. And this astrologer was saying, do you see this yourself in the same patterns dealing with people? Like you run into the same, difficult person, you attract them in your life. And astrology can help you really quickly find your life's calling and passion. And it's based on the stars. And you don't have to believe in astrology, but astrology believes in you. And unlike a psychic or, because, I've sworn off the psychics. I mean, I would have them on. Like I want to have the medium on. Like I'm going to have her on. And she smokes weed and then contacts your dead relatives. But I'm really not, I don't believe in psychics, because if psychics worked, I finally woke up to this like 5 years ago. If psychics worked, they'd all have your same reading, right? If your destiny was written, wouldn't they all know it? Of course. So I don't do the psychics anymore. I don't do the tarot cards anymore. And tarot is just like what happens to be happening like that day. And your tarot reading's good for like, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then like the stars and the solstice switch and then it's all new. So I don't do that anymore. But astrology somewhat interested me because it is like there was a star pattern when you were born. And do you believe that the planets change the energy of, of how we were born? Or maybe it's a bunch of bullshit. I don't know. I'm going to find out and I'm going to tell you how it is. And I'm starting the class. It's a fair amount of Deborah Silverman, astrology.com, I think is her website. You can sign up. And if I'll tell you, I'm going to give you an honest review because I'm going to do level 1. I don't know anything about it. I've met people over the years. They want to know my sign before I go on their podcast. I've met people who say like, oh, I shouldn't be married to Schman because we don't have the right, like rising sun or rising planet. I don't know what the fuck that means. I don't care. I just don't even like pay a lot of attention. But I am very curious. I started listening to a lot of Deborah's stuff and it actually made sense. And she explains it very simply. It sounded logical. And I was like, oh, this could be fun. And what a great like party trick. If I become good at reading people's astrological charts, like apparently Aaron Rodgers is. Aaron Rodgers reads all of his teammates' astrological charts so he can better interact with them. All right. I mean, does that work? And it's funny because like my good friend Ronica, she reached out to me and she's like, oh, I want to do Deborah's class. I've always been fascinated by astrology. I know a lot of you guys are. And Deborah says that you've really got to get in there and read your chart and know your chart and your rising signs because it's much deeper than the daily astrological reading that you have. And it's based on your birth chart. And your birth chart is the day you were born, the time you were born, and the location, because then they can look at the star pattern. So if you're interested, because it was one TSFS fan is taking the class with me now. Ronica couldn't do it because she had a conflict, but she's going to do their January one. They have a January one coming up. Hit me up, the Sarah Fraser Show @gmail.com. I mean, Deborah really seems like the real deal. And when I did the level 1 intro course for the first time on Friday, which was just telling you kind of how the layout was going to be, and there's a fair amount of like homework and studying. And Deborah did read me. I'm an air sign. Like I'm an air, which air people are, they're great at communicating. They love people. Their hardest part is really committing and going deep because they are a person that has like a ton of interests. Of all trades, a master of none. And if they can master that one thing, that can help expand their life exponentially. And it's true. I mean, look at me. I know even here in LA, if you ask me my biggest Achilles heel, it's I have so many ideas. And how many have you guys that have been with me for a long time? How many have you seen me have over the years? Sweeties. I mean, I have done true crime. I have had podcast co-hosts and no co-hosts and podcast co-hosts from my past and my future. I mean, I have done so many things, but it's hard for me to focus on like 2 projects. Like, that gives me anxiety. If you said to me, Sarah, all you can focus on is the Sarah Fraser Show and one other thing, I'd be like, so I'm curious. I mean, she did when she like talked to me about what my air sign was like. I mean, it did nail my personality. So that got me. That's like, I would say Deborah, by far and away, gave me the most accurate reading, like actually nailing my personality than I've ever had with any like psychic or medium. Just saying. So I will keep you posted. I'm working on that. Okay, wait, let me thank Blissy. And then I have to ask you guys advice. I need parent has started hitting us. What do we do? All right, let's thank Blissy. Guys, Blissy is an incredible company with over 1 million 5-star reviews. I mean, do you know how long it takes to get like 5 reviews? And Blissy has 1 million. Blissy is the top silk, 100% mulberry silk pillowcase company in the world. I just gave it that title, by the way. Okay. It is award winning. Silk is honestly the best way to sleep this summer because it's a natural temperature regulator. Also, it never absorbs your skincare products. So it's amazing. If you sweat at night, it helps you to be anti-sweat because it keeps you cool. On top of that, it's great to reduce frizz and hair breakage because it doesn't absorb your hair products. Satin versus silk. There are a lot of dupes out there that claim that satin can be an alternative to silk, but it's just not the case. Satin is made from a synthetic fiber like polyester, while silk is a luxurious, all-natural fiber, and that's what you get with Blissy. Are you ready to get 30% off like my sister-in-law did? She's buying it for everybody. Shout out to Erin. She's buying it for gifts for her sister and herself. Blissy silk pillowcases are the best silk pillowcases on the market. They have a ton of different prints and colors, and they make great gifts too, because there's an option for literally anyone. Men love them too. Schman's using his. They have over 1.5 million raving fans, and you need to be next. Try the now risk-free for 60 nights. If you don't like it, you can return it. I love a company like that. At blissy.com/TSFS, get an additional 30% off. That's Blissy, BLISSY.com/TSFS, and use code TSFS to get an additional 30% off. Sleep cooler this summer with Blissy. Also got to thank my guy, Horizon Fibroids. Ladies, I hear from you all across the country. Sarah, who's the fibroid guy doctor that you have? Dr. Will Neem from Horizon Fibroids in Maryland. 3 locations, Rockville, Frederick, and Gaithersburg. And if you're not in the Maryland area or DC area, don't worry. He will do a telehealth meeting with you. You can make your appointment and check if he takes your insurance at horizonfibroids.com. This is so nuts. But women across the country, many you know, are actually getting blood transfusions because they're losing so much blood from their fibroids. And the thing is, they're afraid to go in because most OBGYNs are going to say, get a hysterectomy. Dr. Will is known for a low downtime surgical procedure called uterine fibroid embolization. 5-star, baby. You don't believe me? Go and check his reviews. You can check him with a better bureau. He is well accredited and respected. And hysterectomy, you may not need one. Of course, everybody's different, but go and see him before you have one at horizonfibroids.com. So help. I'm a mama to a 2.5-year-old working on baby number 2, which will happen. What do I do with a 2.5-year-old who has now started hitting us? And when we take things away from him, such as the phone, I know you're not supposed to give your kids like a phone or television, but I sometimes need a break and sometimes I don't feel well. And so he's watching TV for an hour. We've switched from Coco Melon to TT-Po. Is anybody on TT-Po? At first it was a savior. Now I fucking hate trains. Okay. TT-Po it's a spin-off of a South Korean show that was about, oh my God, cars, I think, or helicopters. And then they did TT-Po, which is about trains. And, it's all about the drama of the trains, and they have a little cute train conductor and dog and all that fun stuff. He watches it like it's like crack. It's like his crack, which I mean, I guess is true, right? Because we're all addicted to the phones. So now when we take it away, he started hitting us in the face and throwing our cell phones and throwing objects. Okay. Any suggestions? Like, what do you do with a 2.5-year-old? Not to mention, he's now like, I feel like he's eating even worse. Like, I feel like when we have a breakthrough and okay, this is like not an endorsement, but it's an endorsement. Little Spoon is a company that is advertising on the show, right? So, and they do a food subscription base. They have all kinds of like food plates and pouches. He loves the pouches. He'll eat like some of the meals, but not all of them. And I felt like we were on a good path with that. I was like, I got a box. Obviously, they wanted me to talk about their products, see what KJ thought. So at first, he like loved it. Chicken nuggets he was eating, their mac and cheese. Now forget it. He's reverted to just like pouches. We eat pouches and fruit bars nonstop, and fruit. He does eat a lot of fruit: mangoes, bananas, blueberries, strawberries, apples. He loves an apple. But yeah, we're reverting back. That's like a whole nother story. So I don't know if your 2.5-year-old is eating those seaweed sticks, like how do you just like, did you just start that way and you never introduced them to other food? It's so time consuming though, isn't it? Fuck. That's another rant. So if your kid eats well at 2.5, how? Number two, going back to like, how do you get them to stop hitting? So Schman, our good friends who we really like, the wife, she is like a guidance counselor at an elementary school. And she's like, I always did, and their kids are older. Their kids have turned out great. And I'm like, okay, what was your parenting secret? And she says that they did timeout based on the child's age. So 2 minutes for 2, 3 minutes for a 3-year-old, 4 minutes for a 4-year-old, 5, for a 5-year-old, 5 minutes, on and on. So we've started doing timeout. We sit with him in his room and he cries and fusses and we just like talk to him. We're like, you can't throw, you can't hit. Is this getting through? Then the other day, okay. The other thing is he has a passy. People have thoughts on that. People have a lot of hot takes on the passy. I don't care. You can whatever. You can tell me anything you want. I'm not breaking him up the passy till he's 3. He loves the passy and it was like a lifesaver when we sleep trained him. Now, do I know that getting rid of the sleep passy is going to be an absolute nightmare? 100%. 100%. But it brings him so much comfort. When he's in timeout, I won't let him have it. Now I know how like drawers and things fall on kids. He started climbing up the front of his dresser. I like lost it. I'm like, you get down from there. And then he gets down. Then he kind of like semi-throws himself on the floor. Are your kids this dramatic at 2.5? He's like an actor. I mean, he's an actor. He's so many emotions. I mean, we go from laughter to he goes on the floor and then he kind of looks at me and then he like bumps his head. And it's all. So I pick him up. I'm like, Cage, we got to like, come here. I'm going to rock you. You're all right. We're going to take time out. Like throwing, So then I try, it's like, he's so wound up. I try to change the narrative, right? So I bring him in, I bring him in our room and I'm like, swing him like I'm going to throw him on the bed. So he's laughing and he's half crying. And then he loves this little safe that Dan has. So I'm like, okay, let's open the safe. And then we like come around and we talk about it. But I don't know. These kids really test you. They really try you, don't they? I mean, they really try you, right? I mean, does anyone have a secret to how to get them not to throw? Or it's just, I don't know. And like, or what's a book? What's a good book? Because, I revert back to my own parenting. I guess you kind of know what you know, right? And obviously they say like hitting your kid isn't valuable, but I'm getting ready to like, I'm going to really jerk his arm. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting ready to like really, because he is acting out and, he's trying to run away. He went to the park. Is this like a sign of how bad Shman and I are as parents? Now he goes to the park a lot all week long because he goes to daycare and he has this wonderful nanny who's so fabulous and she really takes good care of him. So they go to the park and she has this amazing group of friends and they all go. So he's at the park a lot. So now on the weekends when we go, and I think he's very bright, although this is probably toddler 101. He goes to the park and now he'll look at the park and he sort of sighs and he goes out and plays for a few minutes. And then he comes back and goes, mommy home. And I'm like, well, mommy wants to get out. She likes to be at the park. So I make him play a little longer and then he'll come, mommy home. So, it's one of those things like, do you think your child knows like what they need? Or is that really crazy because they're only 2.5? I mean, I know I'm not saying like if he wants to eat ice cream every night, like clearly I know that, yes, he would like to do that, but that's not healthy. But like, I'm like, well, maybe he's just had it with the park because he's been there so much. He's not that smart, is he? Okay, just tell me the truth. I love being a parent. I'm not even looking forward to the school age. Like, I don't even know. I don't know. I think I'm going to become one of these LA parents that like the teacher's like, don't you dare try to discipline my kid. No, I'm not going to be like that, right? No. Oh my God. And then I'm probably like going to be crazy, I guess, on this school. I don't, I hope we go to a good school where the kids are like nice and fairly normal. And I don't know, you don't have a ton of like social drama. That's unrealistic, isn't it? Okay. So anyhow, all your advice to at the Sarah Fraser Show everywhere, TikTok, IG. I would love to know how you got your 2.5-year-old to stop hitting you, stop running away from you, eating healthy. Any suggestions, any books, whatever. It'd be great. There you go.